Let the record show that Inspector Castillo has identified this as the bullet passed through Mason Capwell and into the body of Amado Gonzalez. And this as the gun that ballistic tests confirmed was the murder weapon. Now, Inspector Castillo, you were at the party where the shooting took place.
Yes.
There was another incident involving the defendant and a gun that same evening, was there not?
Yes, there was, but what happened then wasn't Mr. Lockridge's fault.
Suppose you just tell us what happened that night and let the jury decide whose fault it was.
Warren was about to give a wedding present to Mason and Cassie.
A wedding present? To a couple whose marriage he vehemently opposed?
It was actually a gift from his grandmother, Minx Lockridge.
So he was reaching into his coat, allegedly planning to give a gift to the happy couple. What happened next?
Mr. Hunt, Craig Hunt, apparently thought that Warren was reaching for a gun.
Something I would love to give you.
I don't think so.
Did you, as an officer of the law, make any attempt to apprehend Mr. Lockridge after he had endangered the welfare of a whole room full of people?
I took the gun from him and instructed him to meet me at police headquarters the following morning.
If you had arrested him, perhaps Mr. Gonzalez would be alive today.
Objection. Your Honor, we're seeking evidence, not the prosecutor's opinion.
Sustained. You ask the questions, Mr. Marley. It's only fair Inspector Castillo gets to answer them.
Describe, if you will, the second shooting.
Mason was proposing a toast.
For I have dipped into the future as far as human eye could see. I saw the visions of the world and all the wonders yet to be.
And your friend Amado, you had no idea that the bullet had struck him?
You have to...
How is that possible?
Listen to me. You have to imagine what was going on at the time. Basically, it was pandemonium. People were screaming, and I had no way of knowing whether the person who had fired this shot was going to fire another one. And it is clear that the bullet traveled along this path, passed through Mr. Capwell, who was actually standing somewhat closer to the balustrade, and then entered the body of Mr. Gonzalez. But somebody else could have handled that gun, someone who took the time to remove their fingerprints from it.
Just answer the question. Whose fingerprints did you find on the murder weapon?
The only clear prints were those of the defendant.
And just how do you suppose they got there if the man wasn't firing the gun?
You tell me.
You don't have to answer that question. I'm sure the jury already knows the answer to that one. Your witness?
Inspector Castillo. Amado Gonzalez was your friend, wasn't he?
A very good friend, yes.
And Mason Capwell is your brother-in-law, I believe.
Yes.
Are you interested in finding out who killed your friend and injured your relative?
Extremely interested.
So, it would be safe to say to the jury that you conducted as thorough an investigation as possible.
Before I was taken off the case, I devoted all my time and energy to finding the person who did this.
And at any time during your investigation, you find any evidence, and I'm talking about concrete evidence, not the circumstantial kind that Mr. Marley has been describing, but anything that demonstrated to you that Warren Lockridge killed your friend and injured Mr. Capwell?
No, sir, I did not.
You're a cop. A good one. Do you believe Mr. Lockridge committed this crime?
Objection, Your Honor.
There's no doubt in my mind Mr. Lockridge is innocent of this crime.
Sustained. The jury will disregard the answer. Inspector, you're a police officer. You know better.
No further questions at this time.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. I have another question for Inspector Castillo. But since he chooses to defend his friend rather than tell the truth, I would like to treat him as a hostile witness.
Permission granted.